Oops. All right, I am going live on both YouTube and on Instagram, and I'm trying to get this set up. Oh, oh no. Oh no. Hello, hello. It's Amina, the infectious doctor, talking to you today about sugar. And I am trying to, why is it so dark? Trying to get this thing set up. And it's so dark. I said today that I was going to be talking a bit about sugar. I'm actually trying to do this live on YouTube as well, for what it's worth. But anyway, good day. Has everybody been having a good week so far? Hopefully. And hopefully everybody's been feeling good, feeling strong. Generally, I just want to give a reminder that everything I say is just general information, and it is not for diagnosis of anybody's condition. You are supposed to seek advice from your personal doctor to find out what you need to do for your individual situation. Everybody's situation is different. So, yeah, just a little disclaimer there. Anyway, so talking about sugar, this is probably one of the things I talk about the most, sugar, and specifically just trying to get people sensitized about just to get people to realize just how much sugar is being consumed. And again, this is near and dear to my heart because I have a lot of work doing to do with diabetics, and a lot of the infections I treat are directly related to diabetes. If you hear anything in the background, that's my little shadow Aaron. Anyway, so for me, the sugar thing, as I alluded to sometime before, used to consume large amounts of sugar growing up into my teens and so on, just lots of sugar. I liked my tea with lots of sugar. I liked juice, which was sweet. And I just liked sugar in general, and sweet treats, etc. And it was so bad that I remember, I think, like when they say somebody's alcoholic, when they start feeling like they should cut down or they feel embarrassed to have people realize just how much they are consuming. So I realized that this was a problem when I was on a plane once and I had requested coffee or tea, and then I had to ask for the packets of sugar. Normally on a plane, they give you maybe 2 or so packets of sugar. And I needed more, at least I thought so. So I had to ask for some extra packets. And so she came by, the flight attendant came by, and I was asking, may I have some extra sugar, please? And she asked me how much. And I was embarrassed. So I kind of whispered because I didn't want anybody to hear me. And I said, may I have 6 packets, please? I think 6 or 7 packets, 6 or 7 packets of sugar in a small cup of tea or coffee on a plane. That's an enormous amount. And so, I was kind of embarrassed and said it softly. And that was like a moment where I realized, this is too much, because I'm actually embarrassed to tell this woman how much sugar I want. And so, but anyway, I still continue to have a lot of sugar because I liked it. I love juices. I never drank water. And actually, my mother used to say, how can you be a doctor and you never drink water? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, I felt that water made me feel like ill, nauseous or whatever. So I just never, ever drank water growing up. And even in adulthood up until about maybe 6, 7 years ago. And what it was that made me kind of sort of realize just how terrible this sugar problem was my husband. He keeps up with the news and so on more than me, just general news, and even some medical things that he might come upon before I do. And so he saw a report or heard a report from the WHO, World Health Organization, where they made some new recommendations. This is about about 5 or 6 years ago, and they made some recommendations about sugar intake. And essentially, their recommendation was that all of us, whether or not we're diabetic, the recommendation is that we should have no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day, per 24-hour period. 1 teaspoon being 4 grams. So they said 24 grams of sugar or 6 teaspoons of sugar, no more than that for a 24-hour period. And they recommended this regardless of whether or not you are diabetic. So when I started sort of calculating how much sugar I was taking, first, it was looking at the juice. I used to have those Minute Maid apple juices, and one Minute Maid apple juice has 48 grams of sugar. So that's 12 teaspoons right there. So that's way beyond the daily requirement. And I would have about two or three of those Minute Maid juices every day. Then I used to like the yogurts, Chobani Greek yogurts. One of those would have about 16 grams of sugar. So that's 4 teaspoons in just there. So if I had 2 bottles of juice, that's 24 teaspoons. One Chobani yogurt, that's an extra 4 teaspoons. So that's, let me see, one juice would be 12 teaspoons, 24. So that's 28 teaspoons of sugar just from 2 bottles of juice and a Chobani yogurt. And then if you add other things, 2 cookies, say 1 cookie is 4 grams. So it just really adds up. And so I was like, well, the recommendation is 6 teaspoons and I'm having maybe 50 teaspoons in a day. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. And then I realized, okay, maybe I should do something. And yeah, I'm not diabetic, and maybe I don't have a strong family history of diabetes, but I felt that if I was straining and pushing the body so much with all the sugar, I might stress my pancreas and it might get tired of producing insulin, and then maybe I could become diabetic in the future. So I realized that I had to do something. And that is when I really started to cut down. It wasn't, I guess I'm sort of disciplined, so it wasn't the worst for me to cut down. And so now I've gotten to the point where I put absolutely no sugar in any of the beverages, like no sugar in the tea, no sugar in coffee. And I don't drink juice anymore. I actually only drink water now. So when I'm walking around, I have a bottle of water in my pocket and basically just only water. And of course, for me, that's a big deal from never drinking water, only drinking juices and very sweetened teas and coffees, to now only drinking water and drinking tea and coffee without sugar. When you also look at the labels, you realize different things like cereals and snack bars, and just everything is just so loaded with sugar. And, only when you kind of pay attention to the labels and you realize, oh my goodness, like I'm slowly stressing out my pancreas and I'm slowly, making my body more prone to having diabetes. So that was the realization for me, kind of an aha moment after those guidelines. Those guidelines, of course, are pretty stringent. 6 teaspoons of sugar per person per day. I mean, you kind of make that up in less than no time. So the general, when I talk to people, all sorts of people, nurses, patients, but also nurses are just regular everyday people. And we get to talking about sugar and diets and so on. And, I sort of, you might pick up something, either a bottle of soda or a snack packet. And you basically just look at the nutrition label, and all the labels, they have things. They have fat content, carbohydrates, and usually on the carbohydrates, it then has a subsection, sugars. And that tells you, okay, it has 9 grams of sugar, or it has 20 grams of sugar, or whatever. But the thing you have to pay attention to is if, that label says the amount of grams of sugar per serving. So you have to say now, okay, this packet has 2 servings, or it might specify 1 serving is equal to 2 cookies. Okay, so 1 serving is equal to 2 cookies, and each 1 serving has 8 grams of sugar. So the whole packet, if it has 8 cookies, would have 1 cookie is 2 cookies is 8 grams. So 8 cookies would be 4 servings, which would be 4 twos, 8 teaspoons. And you probably can use a calculator, because sometimes, depending on how much sugar it is, it might get a little tough to make the calculations. But that's another thing. Sometimes the cookies, like I like butter biscuits. I don't really have them anymore, but butter biscuits have sugar. And depending on the brand you buy, one butter biscuit may have 4 grams of sugar or 1 teaspoon. So if I'm eating 8 butter biscuits at once, I'm having 8 teaspoons of sugar all at once. And then if I drink a bottle of juice after that, then that might be 12 teaspoons of sugar. And then it just adds up, right? So the big thing is just kind of looking at the labels and looking, it would have the amount of sugar in grams, and you you can, I'm sure there are calculators on the internet. Aaron, what are you doing? There are calculators on the internet to calculate it in teaspoons, but you could just take out your phone and use the calculator and divide the amount of grams by 4 to get the amount of teaspoons in whatever it is you're eating. And then you can add up as time goes by and sort of get an idea of how much sugar you're consuming. I think for most of us, if we really kind of like do a 24-hour check back the past 24 hours and see what you ate. So you had a yogurt, you had 2 bottles of sugar, you had a cup of coffee, and you probably maybe you put 4 teaspoons of sugar in it. You had a snack bar, and you look at the label, and the snack bar, depending on what it was that you had, it might have 20 grams of sugar. You had some cereal this morning, and cereals are so sweet these days, and you might have 12 grams of sugar in a serving of cereal. But then who takes the exact serving? Like when I take cereal, I'm not going to take exactly, I think the serving might be half a cup or maybe 1 cup, but usually you just pour your cereal into a bowl. And so you might actually end up with 2 or 3 cups of cereal in the bowl. And then you multiply the amount of sugar per serving. So if one serving had 3 teaspoons of sugar, so your 3 cups of sugar in your bowl have 9 teaspoons. So it just really adds up. And you can see that probably none of us meet those requirements on the World Health Organization, which is like it sort of is, I guess, the universal sort of organization to give health recommendations for all of us. So yeah, that's basically the message, to pay attention to the labels and specifically the sugar. On the carbohydrates, it says sugar, and you just look and see, okay, 8 grams or 20 grams, and then start adding up. And then the aim should be to try to cut down bit by bit. So now, I mean, maybe my diet is extra or extremely restricted, or maybe not, but I mean, because I do eat, but like obviously I eat, but I mean, just not having butter biscuits anymore, or if I have, it would be like 1 or 2. I decided against the chobani, and actually a nurse who used to work with me, she gave me some kefir or kefir, some people pronounce it kefir, beads to make kefir or kefir. It's a fermented sort of milk drink. And so that, I don't drink sugar. I think the big thing I would say, and which I say to people all the time, is that the easiest way to slash the sugar content significantly is actually to just get rid of the drinks. Because the juices, by far, juices, sodas, those by far give you the most amount of sugar. So for me, just eliminated those Minute Maid apple juices every day. Just kind of slashed by more than 50% the amount of sugar I was taking. And then sodas as well. Sodas have maybe 48 grams of sugar in one can of Sprite or Coca-Cola. And then, well, that depends on where you are, because I found out, and I probably always knew, but I actually saw for myself that sodas in the United States actually have more sugar than sodas outside of the United States. So I was in Antigua in the Caribbean on vacation a couple weeks ago, and the sodas, I think I took up a bottle of Sprite, and it had 38 grams of sugar. And I believe a bottle of Sprite here, or can, might have, I think maybe 48 or so grams per serving. So the sugar, and then in Europe as well, I'm told that the sodas and drinks in general have significantly less sugar than the drinks in the United States. So that's another thing. Just the fact that, I don't know, it's just kind of designed here to make us all take loads of sugar, and maybe we're not going to get diabetic, but it's really hard because if you're working and you're busy and you're kind of depending on just sort of buying something, then there's not many options unless you're going to cook or prepare what you're going to eat or consume. So for me, and what I did, slashing the juices, cutting the juices, that was a big thing. And just as a start, consider cutting down the amount of juices. Now, it might be hard to kind of cold turkey stop everything, but just slowly cutting down, right? And slowly eliminating things one by one. So if you had a lot of sodas, then, if some people drink 10 cans of sodas per day, or 12 pack, because I've had people tell me that they drink a 12 pack of sodas per day. So say, okay, every day you're going to cut down by 1. And you might say, okay, I'm using the example of 10. So today I'm going to have 9 sodas instead of 10, and let's try to get by with just 9. okay, or whatever it is. If it's 3 bottles of juice, then somebody like me would say, okay, I'm not gonna have 3 bottles, I'm gonna have 2 bottles of juice. And instead of having the juice straight, just maybe diluted with water so that you still get that sweet taste and it's not a shock to your taste buds. And then you just kind of gradually cut down, make it maybe more and more dilute, because sweet is actually an acquired taste, and your taste buds eventually get used to having less and less and less sugar. And that happened to me, where now if I have something sweet, I actually don't like it, because now my taste buds are accustomed to no sugar. And yeah, it's an acquired taste. It truly is. So if you think, oh, I can't do without sugar, which is what I thought for myself, then just know that it's literally like in biologically or whatever, it's an acquired taste, and you definitely can cut down and stay down. But cold turkey might be a bit much, so just kind of doing it gradually, more and more dilute, so it's less sugar. And then after a while you're almost having no sweet drinks or less sweetened drinks, and then you realize, oh my, you will go somewhere, have something sweet, and realize, oh my goodness, this thing is too sweet. So that's what I would kind of suggest, just a gradual cut down, unless you're really a super driven person and you want to just do it cold turkey. um, so that's basically that with sugar and cutting down gradually. Once you get the drinks, juices, drinks, and so on eliminated, I guess, then you can start paying attention to snacks, like snack bars, looking at labels in supermarkets. And that's what we do now. Just in choosing something new, just kind of first go to the label, look at the sugar content. How much sugar is in this? 30 grams. Okay, this one is too sweet. Let's choose a different brand of cereal, for example, and just try to, it's so tough to find something without sugar, but there are maybe a couple brands that you might have a cereal where it has maybe 7 grams of sugar per serving, or maybe a little less, but it's actually very tough. Um, Another thing is that if you're going to rely on buying food, then that's going to be harder than if you prepare your own food. So, excuse me, before I never ever baked anything. Like, my oven was pristine because I never baked anything. But now, in the past few years, I started baking, because, well, I live in a place where the options to buy things like pastries and so on, we just have limited options. So if we're gonna have things like pastries and so on, we basically have to cook or prepare our own if we want something that's not as sweet. And when you use recipes, for people who like to cook, you use a recipe and you can just cut the amount of sugar given in the recipe. So I remember I was speaking to a lady once, and she's like, no, but I have to do it the right way. So I have to make this pie like the recipe said for it to come out right. And so it was a blueberry pie, and I think it had like 2 cups of sugar in the filling and maybe another cup of sugar on the topping. So a lot of sugar, but she just felt like, for my pie to come out right, I need to put the right amount. But when you can definitely adjust recipes, and that's what we do, sometimes cutting the amount of sugar by as much as 50%. And you can play around with recipes as well. And then you make something and you can kind of watch the serving, in the slices and so on. And as time goes by and you sort of get more disciplined, and then you realize that you can survive with less sugar, you realize that, hey, it's not as bad after all. For those same guidelines, it's specifically added sugar. So sugar in fruits and vegetables, and just sugar occurring naturally in food, is not what we're counting. Of course, if somebody is diabetic, then they need to, a diabetic would need to avoid the sweeter fruits, bananas and mangoes and so on are super sweet, as opposed to different berries that are less sweet. So it's kind of, you just kind of juggle it. And then persons who are diabetic, most diabetics would have blood sugar machines. And so they can usually sort of check the blood sugar after eating certain foods, and then pay attention to which foods carry up sugar the most. So just little things like that. And then, well, the doctor will hopefully give some advice. Aaron, where are you going with that? But yeah, sugar is slowly killing us. And like this doctor from maybe 100 years ago, William Osler, said, we are digging our graves with our teeth, because it's just what we're eating. Thank you. What we're eating, those foods that are just stressing our bodies so much. Thank you. That, giving us these problems and just kind of making us making us require different medicines and different visits to the doctor and so on. So that is my little talk for today. Let me see, about 21, 5:21. Tijuana is watching. Hi, thanks for watching. And I still cannot figure out how to if somebody asks a question, how to get the question. So I don't know. If somebody asks a question, then I'll have to just address it at the end of all this. But yeah, that's basically what my message is for today. Look at the amount of grams of sugar on the label. Start looking and start choosing brands or different foods that have fewer grams of sugar. To get a better idea, divide the amount of grams by 4 to get the amount of teaspoons. And when you start thinking in teaspoons, then you really start realizing how much sugar you're taking. Because if you realize you had like 12 teaspoons of sugar just in this one drink, and then if you have a pie or something, one of my favorite desserts is tiramisu, and that probably has 50 grams of sugar in one square. I don't know, but yeah, just kind of pay attention, slowly cut down, unless you're a super person and you're gonna just kind of slash it all at once. And then when you kind of have a general low sugar intake, then you can sort of maybe give yourself a little treat every now and then. Of course, a diabetic shouldn't really have a tiramisu because that's just going to shoot the sugar way up high. But generally speaking, if you have like kind of a moderate consumption, and I'm just talking for the general public, not necessarily for diabetic, because diabetics probably should be much more strict. But moderate consumption, then your body's not stressed, your pancreas is fine, you do not become diabetic, but then you can enjoy treats every now and then and not have to worry. All right. Well, I am going to end this now, and hopefully next week I will come on again with another topic. So listen up for that. And thanks for watching. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks to everyone who will or has watched this, because there's so much competing for our time. So thank you for your time, and be well. Bye.